Well, leaders say climate change is to blame for the natural disasters in Somalia. The country has been hit by drought, floods and now a devastating cyclone, all in less than a year. CGTN's Abdulaziz Bilo has more from Mogadishu.
Mohammed Ahmed is the manager of this school in the central Somali town of Beledweyne. He is inspecting the state of the learning institution almost 1 month since he was forced to shut it down due to heavy floods. Most of the classrooms are still filled with flood water. For the past weeks, Mohammed has been receiving calls from parents and his students inquiring whether things have improved in the school.
A month ago, this school had 1,000 students here, but now it's flooded with water. In this region alone, we have at least 10 schools, and they've all been affected by the flooding. Students have been unable to go for the local and national exams because everyone has fled to higher grounds.
On Saturday, more than 27,600 students sat for the national secondary examinations in more than 100 centers all across south-central Somalia. But the Ministry of Education had to suspend it on Sunday after heavy rains pounded most parts of south-central regions of the country. In Mogadishu, at least 6 people were killed following heavy rains. Key roads have been rendered impassable, with local authorities struggling to mitigate the crisis. Mogadishu and UN partner agencies have since launched an urgent humanitarian appeal for $80 million so as to assist the victims of the heaviest rainfall in decades. Aid agencies say that they've been able to reach some of the affected areas, including Sol and Senag regions, where Puntland and Somaliland troops have been battling for control. An estimated 10,000 people are said to have been displaced due to months of intense fighting. The cyclone has further worsened the situation, destroying crops and affecting the fishing communities in the coastal towns.
Tackling climate change is working on resilience, long-term programs, especially river areas, and in short-term period trying to respond to the effects of climate change. And nowadays people talk about climate change refugees. And truly what we are experiencing is displaced people, displaced because of climate change.
The latest situation in the country has raised concerns among humanitarian actors. The country recently overcame its worst drought in decades, and as many prayed for rains, the latest downpour, considered a blessing, has indeed turned into bad luck for mostly farmers and pastoralists. Abdulaziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Well, let's get you the latest now on these storms in the Horn of Africa. We're joined by CGTN's Abdulaziz Bilo live for us in Mogadishu. Abdulaziz, when you look at the numbers, tens of thousands of people have been affected by the flooding and the storms in Djibouti and Somalia. Of course, the devastation seems quite significant at this stage. Just tell us the latest on that situation and, of course, the latest casualty figures too.
Well, Lindy, it's considered the deadliest rain downpour here to hit the Horn of Africa in almost 3 decades. You're talking about almost 700,000 people who have been affected by the heavy rainfall and the tropical cyclone known as Sagar that landed here in the Horn of Africa, in Djibouti and parts of Somalia here over the weekend. So the death toll, according to statistics from aid agencies, according to local authorities that we've been talking to on the phone since yesterday, they put the figure at 25 in Somaliland. That's an autonomous region in northern Somalia, and it affected mostly an area known as Awdal. Awdal now lies on the border between Somalia and Djibouti, and that's where it was. That's where the cyclone rather mostly impacted the families, and most of the people there are quite devastated by the tropical cyclone. And we also have almost 5 people who died in Puntland due to that same tropical cyclone known as Sagar. So it's definitely a big challenge here, and one that many say caught international community as well as the Somali government off guard, because the government was already dealing with a different case of flooding in south-central Somalia, and then the cyclone further excavated the humanitarian situation there on the ground. So authorities are trying to mitigate the crisis there, Lindy, and there was a government delegation that went to visit that area in Awdal. The Vice President of Somaliland visited that area and toured the region and sought international support so that the victims there can be assisted. We are talking about 10,000 families who are forced to move from their homes. The roads have been rendered impassable. The farmers, they've lost most of their livestock. 700 farm area have been flooded with water. So there's very little hope for the vulnerable community there, and they're appealing for urgent help, Lindy.
Indeed, one can only imagine. And as you say, of course, authorities really caught off guard. 700,000 people affected by Cyclone Sagar and at least 30 people dead in the region. Thanks very much, Abdulaziz Bilo, for that update.